Hey everyone, Eric Hayden here in the garden. Really nice evening. This is one of my favorite times in the garden, either first thing in the morning or toward dusk. A really nice bright light, but not so harsh, so the videos turn out pretty well. Want to do a quick tour of the roses. We've got Ring of Fire to show you today, Folklore, which is also an orange rose, and some other goodies behind me to show you things that are blooming. I gotta be honest though, I am disappointed with my thrips. Any light color rose I have in the garden, yellows, whites, pinks, not looking so good. Traditionally, the Western flower thrip would produce brown streaks on the roses. Certainly not good if you're doing a rose show, but other places I've lived, such as upstate New York, you did a little misting of orthene, not really a big deal. Again, except if maybe you were in a rose show, you would notice it. Giving them to the neighbors, no problem at all. Here, the thrips are so bad, I wouldn't even give some of these blooms to neighbors. In the past, I've sprayed insecticides. Then quickly I would have an outbreak of spider mites. So it was a battle back and forth. This year, I haven't done anything until the other day, and I noticed some devastating impacts on the white roses. Almost just look like balled up toilet paper. They're just not opening at all. The least damage is just streaks on the roses. Again, doesn't look the best, but not overall terrible. But now they're so bad that the blooms aren't even opening. So I'll show you that, and then also show you some of the good blooms that are opening up here in the garden as of this evening. The first one that is outstanding, that is Ring of Fire. That's from Chris Greenwood. It is one that you should be able to get mail order. I said this last time, I'll try to put some of these links in below so you know where to order these. Since it is the latter part of the spring, make up a list of what you want and then write it down, and then you would want to order this fall of 2021 for delivery probably spring 2022. So make those lists now so that you can get those roses in your garden. Here's a beautiful rose outside of the thrip damage. Any of this brown is because of the thrips, and I can deal with this. Again, some brown marks on it, at least the rose bloom opens, and then from a distance you don't notice it, especially from the kitchen window or something to that effect. So that I can live with. This isn't open yet, but that's Marilyn Monroe. Looks like it'll be a nice bloom on that. Want to show you a nice red rose. This is not as widely distributed. It was actually bred here in the Carolinas. It is Mr. Caleb. I think it's Fred Wright. Hopefully I got the Wright brother name correct. Very, very nice red rose. It gets damaged a little bit more easily than the Veteran's Honor, but the coloring is very similar. Really, really nice. You can see pretty prolific bloomer. We have a lot of red roses here coming on that. One sign that I was having some thrip issues, some of these buds are curled. Sometimes that can be just weather, hot, cold. But as you go over to this rose here, this is not looking so good. This is silver cream. It's nothing to do with the rose itself. Again, at the very least, getting some brown coloring. If I open these petals up, I'm actually going to cut these off tonight because they're so bad. You can see really carefully, they're not moving as much because I did spray recently. You can see that one moving just a little bit, but I would have hundreds and hundreds of these on the plant. So there you can see those thrips moving around. You're looking at the little brown or black bugs that are slowly moving. So I'm going to actually cut some of these blooms off because they look so bad, and that's a pretty good way to get rid of them. But what's happening now is some are so deformed that they're not even opening, or you can tell in bud form, they just look terrible. And that's real upsetting. I guess on the plus side, the overall health of the bush is not impacted. Once we get through this cycle of blooms, if I get ahead on the spraying, maybe they won't be as bad with the second flush of blooms. But it's terrible when you have all these blooms that are kind of going to waste. And it's primarily the whites and pinks, anything light color. This is Pope John Paul II. Again, that just looks terrible. I'm not even going to give that to a neighbor. So enough with the thrips, because that is very, very frustrating. I want to show you some pretty rose pictures. This is Fragrant Cloud. Some of the petals have already fallen off of the bloom from the other day. So this is not an exhibition rose. And what I mean by that, it's not going to hold its form very long, but very, very fragrant. You can see a vibrant orange. Speaking of orange, a little lighter color. This is very nice. This is Folklore. You can see a lot of blooms opening up now. It has a little bit of damage because of the thrips, but I don't care about these as much because at least they're opening and showing us a little bit of what they can do. So those are some of the ones that are opening up now. I'll take you to one of the older gardens. Let's see if anything else catches my eye. This one a little bit, just for the pure form. Again, this is Cajun Moon. I showed you one at the very beginning of the video, and some of these have bloomed together because I allowed them to be a spray. So very nice. And if you missed our video earlier, what a spray is you have multiple buds on one stem, and you can do one or two things. The big giant one, the terminal bud, if you remove that, then all these tiny ones will bloom at about the same time like that. You'll have a nice spray or cluster of roses. If you want a single stem, you just want to get in here and remove these tinier ones like I'm doing now. And the earlier you do that, the better. I'm doing this while recording a video, real easy to do. Some roses, Cajun Moon, one of them, tends to spray more. So again, if you want these single stem roses, you're just going to have to come in here and remove all the side buds. And then the earlier you do it, the more tender it is. That one, of course, is being a pain a little bit. Let's see if I can see anything that's worth showing. These Affirm, not as worth showing. Again, terrible, terrible, terrible thrip damage. Earlier today, I ripped off all the petals, the outside petals. You can see what it should look like, a nice pink. So I have come in here and removed some of the outer petals. And let's see if I can open some of these. You can see the thrips crawling around in there, doing their thing, and deforming some of the blooms. So this is just not even worth keeping. So I'll cut those, cut the real bad ones off. I have plenty of other blooms coming, and I'll wait for those to open up a little more prolifically. Some good news, I want to show you Jewel Grace. It's a lighter colored rose, but enough darkness in it that the thrips aren't bothering it as bad. That's a really, really pretty color. Let's see if I can see one that is open just a little bit more. You can see it's getting some weather damage. I showed you this before. It's got a nice yellow coloring, especially into the rose itself. So really, really nice shade of red and yellow. That reminds me, I've got to show you the Double Delight, because that's a beauty too. Here's an example of Marlin's Day. Since I know I have thrips, and since I know this is a light colored rose, I will be misting these buds here the next couple days, because already you can see that insects are trying to mess around with it. So by knowing that I've already had some issues, I hope to get ahead of it by the time this opens up, in terms of probably another week to 10 days. Let's see, I got no Geminis. This is a small Gemini. Really, really pretty coloring. This is an older one in terms of an older bloom, but you can see why it's an exhibition rose. Nice center to it. Looking really, really good. The Veteran's Honor, just starting to open the first reds on that. I showed you the one the other day, and again, it has not changed much. It's not even showing that well in the camera. It's so red, but a huge, huge bloom. Really, really nice red. If you're making your list of must-haves for 2022, Veteran's Honor should be on it, especially if you're a fan of red roses. I'm going to wrap this up with two other ones that have caught my eye. This is John Smith's Claire Elise. A little bit harder to get, but you can certainly get it from Wisconsin Roses and K&M Roses as well. You can see some of them are just about past peak here, but still looking nice in the garden. Another good one to have, Veteran's Honor as a red, and then I would recommend for decently growing one and coloration is a Double Delight. This has a little bit of a confused center here. It can happen sometimes if it gets too much nitrogen, but it smells really good, and you cannot beat that coloring. It is a hybrid tea. Again, it's Double Delight. It's an older rose. It's been around for a while, so it should be pretty easy to find for mail order. Sometimes you can even see these at the big box stores as well. I said this would be it, but it caught my eye. Yolande de Aragon, I showed you that before. Looking very, very nice in the garden. So that's it for today. I'll be battling these thrips. I'll try to take off some of the old blooms. That will kill a lot of them, and then just kick it into high gear, my spray program, while watching out for spider mites at the same time, because a lot of times when you start using insecticides, you take care of one and you have an issue with another. The next chore over the next couple weeks will be to plant these two. If you haven't seen them before, these were, this is Gemini and Moonstone, bought from Palatine in the late fall 2020, planted, potted up over the winter, and they are really exploding. I'm a huge believer in getting bare roots through the mail, spending the extra money on pots and soil, pot them up, and when they get established, putting them in the ground. You have much more control over them. If you have a late cold snap or any issues, you just bring them inside, bring them in the garage. You baby them along, and then they're really strong, both the plant and the root system, so they should have a much better fighting chance when you stick them in the ground. And then by the time you do, the season is well established and the soil temperatures are warm and everything's looking good. So that's it from the garden. Despite the blooms looking kind of not so good up close, it still looks really nice from afar. When you're watching this from the kitchen window and you see oranges and reds and whites, this is why we grow roses. It's not the easiest thing sometimes, and I want to show you not mistakes, because you're always learning, but even in a beautiful garden like this, we still have issues from time to time. And I want to be honest with everybody so that they don't think any garden is perfect, because that is not the case. But you still have a lot of beauty underneath some of those issues that you have in your rose garden. Have a good one, everyone.